Desperate rescuers save an earthquake victim from a collapsed building in Turkey.
The young girl pleads with a rescue team to find and save her mother. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Ilagao Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines. Earthquake death toll in Turkey and Syria exceeds 5,000. DFA says no Filipino casualties in Turkey-Syria quake. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. announces aid for earthquake victims overseas. U.S., Russia, and China unite to help Turkey and Syria. And Net 25's Love and Everything premieres on February 13. After 4 a.m. in Ankara yesterday, February 6, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck the countries of Turkey and Syria. Gaziantep was the center of a powerful earthquake at a depth of 18 kilometers. Within 24 hours, dozens of strong aftershocks were recorded, and tremors were felt in parts of Cyprus, Egypt, and Lebanon. Currently, more than 5,000 people have died in the earthquake, 3,419 of whom are from Turkey. Syrian death toll stands at about 1,600. But according to World Health Organization, the death toll from the disaster could reach 20,000. News sources say more than 24,000 people joined the search and rescue efforts. There were reports of residents spending the night on the streets despite the freezing temperature.
Some infrastructure in Turkey and Syria are considered vulnerable because most of its provinces are above the Anatolian Plate, one of the most active transformed fault systems in the world. The aftershocks in Turkey did not stop for 24 hours. Mia Villa tells us more.
Dozens of aftershocks were recorded within 24 hours in Turkey after a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck yesterday. A magnitude 6.7 aftershock struck 11 minutes after. 19 minutes after the initial quake, a magnitude 5.6 aftershock was recorded in the country. A few hours later, the U.S. Geological Survey recorded a severe magnitude 7.5 aftershock at around 1:24 p.m. Turkish time. More than 5,000 infrastructures were damaged, including a state hospital in Iskenderun city. As of now, the extent of the damage to the infrastructure is still unknown. The epicenter of the 7.8 magnitude earthquake was 23 kilometers in Turkey's Gaziantep province and was 24.1 kilometers deep. It was the strongest earthquake to hit Turkey since 1999, killing more than 17,000 people. A few hours later, a new 5.7 magnitude aftershock hit eastern Turkey. According to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center, or EMSC, this is the 30th earthquake felt in eastern Turkey in the past 30 hours. Mia Villa for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
As search and rescue operations continue in Turkey, survivors are desperate to find their loved ones. A young girl rescued from a collapsed building asks rescuers to save her mother. Nadine Aguilar files this report.
Video footage shows earthquake victims rescued from the rubble, including a girl who begged rescuers to rescue her mother. In a video by Turkish Defense Ministry, a girl is seen rescued from one of the collapsed buildings in Turkey. While saving her, She asked authorities to find her mother and save her from the collapse.
Annemi de kurtarın.
Anneni de kurtaracağız Beyza'cığım.
Meanwhile, more rescuers are trying to reach the areas damaged by the earthquake. Due to bad weather, the movement slows down toward the affected areas. Rain and cold temperatures continue in various parts of the country, while power outages have also been a challenge in some towns. Nadine Aguilar, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
248 Filipinos were affected by the magnitude 7.8 earthquake in Turkey and Syria. But Ambassador Maria Elena Algabre clarified there were no reported Pinoy casualties or Filipino casualties in the quake. Some Filipinos had to leave their homes because it is no longer safe for them to stay in collapsed buildings. In the meantime, they are staying in temporary shelters, while others have been adopted by their friends in a safer place. At least 3,700 people, or almost 5,000, have been killed in that earthquake, while 15,762 were injured. Around 9,000 search and rescue personnel were deployed to rescue those affected by the earthquake. There have been more than 100 aftershocks, some of which are as strong as others in the affected regions. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. promised to send affordable assistance to Turkey, especially to Filipinos that are affected by it.
Despite the 7.8 magnitude earthquake, no Filipinos were reported dead or injured in Syria. However, the Philippine Embassy in Syria is still monitoring the situation. Moira Encina for the details.
No Filipinos in Syria were injured or killed in the strong earthquake in northern Syria. This is based on a report received by the Philippine Embassy in Damascus. According to Department of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Tessie Daza, the leaders of the Pinoy community confirmed to the Philippine Embassy that there were no Filipino fatalities. According to DFA, about 60 Filipinos live in areas affected by the earthquake, such as Aleppo. The embassy expressed its condolences to the Syrian and the people who were severely affected by the tragedy. The embassy is continuously cooperating and monitoring the situation in Syria. Moira Encina for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines will send aid to the victims of that massive earthquake in Turkey and Syria, as confirmed by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself. Eden Santos tells us more.
The Philippines will immediately send relief to the victims of the massive earthquake that occurred in Turkey and Syria. This was announced by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself in an ambush interview with the media after he attended a kickoff of the Bureau of Internal Revenue's tax campaign. The president said they immediately organized a group to bring relief to the affected countries. He said the Philippines will send blankets, winter clothes, relief goods, and more. There is a fear of an increase in the number of deaths in the earthquake.
I have been in coordination with, of course, the SND and the MMDA dahil silang handa pala na para makapagpadala ng mga assets sa ibang bansa. We have organized a group of about 85 personnel together with some goods. Ang hinahanap sa atin ay mga blanket, mga winter clothing dahil siyempre yung mga nasiraan ng bahay sa Turkey ay wala na silang matirahan. They're exposed, so they need all of these things.
The Department of National Defense and Metro Manila Development Authority are expected to be deployed to Turkey and Syria tomorrow evening. The group consists of 85 people who include engineers and health workers to be delivered by Turkish Airways. The president is continuously monitoring the situation after the earthquake. He also ordered to closely communicate with the Philippine government through the relevant agencies to determine the situation of the Filipinos there. Eden Santos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Office of the Civil Defense, or OCD, is preparing for the possible deployment of emergency medical and rescue teams to Turkey. The Philippines also expressed its condolences to the victims and all those affected by the earthquake in Turkey after a strong quake of magnitude 7.8. OCD spokesperson ASEC Bernardo Rafaelito Alejandro said the group is working with various government agencies to develop and recruit personnel and equipment to be sent to Turkey. This is in response to the request of the Embassy of the Republic of Turkey in Manila for additional assistance for their country in the face of emergencies such as medical and urban search and rescue teams.
The United States, Russia, and China cast aside their inner conflicts and bond together to help the earthquake-torn Turkey and Syria. Authorities confirm the current death toll has passed 5,000, while nearly 6,000 buildings have collapsed. Randy Bernardino has the details.
Messages of support and condolences poured in as world leaders woke to the news of the deadly earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria. U.S. President Joe Biden says he was deeply saddened and promised Washington will provide all necessary aid to the earthquake victims. Biden also confirms U.S. officials are now reaching out to their Turkish counterparts to coordinate assistance. National Security spokesman John Kirby echoes Biden's statement and says Washington has sent 2 search and rescue teams of 79 people each. State Department spokesman Ned Price also reveals that Secretary of State Antony Blinken has spoken with Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu.
Secretary Blinken just got off the phone with his counterpart, Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu of Turkey, to reiterate the same message. And we stand in solidarity with our allies, our partners, and the people of Turkey and Syria affected by these terrible events. We are committed to doing what we can on both sides of the border, to helping our Turkish allies respond in the first instance with rescue and recovery efforts. That effort will be underway soon with U.S. assistance, but also with funding for recovery and broader response efforts. The same is true on the other side of the border, Saeed. We are determined to do what we can to address the humanitarian needs of the Syrian people. We've done that over the
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin held telephone calls with Syria's Bashar al-Assad and Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Putin immediately sent rescuers and equipment after the 7.8 earthquake dismantled both countries.
По прямому поручению президента Российской Федерации глава МЧС России Александр Куренков направил группировку спасателей в Турецкую, Сирийскую, Арабскую республики. 4 самолета российского чрезвычайного ведомства доставят спасателей аэромобильного отряда «Центроспас» и «Центра Лидер» в зоны разрушительных землетрясений. В составе вылетевшей группировки 7 кинологических расчетов и более 100 специалистов-спасателей.
Russia also sent an air ambulance hospital to the emergency zones to provide rapid assistance to the victims. A Kremlin official says more than 40 specialists from the Russian Emergencies Ministry will be on hand to provide qualified medical care to the wounded. Meanwhile, China says they are sending 40 million won, or $5.9 million in emergency aid to Turkey and disaster relief aid to Syria.
中国政府已经第一时间启动紧急人道主义援助机制，首批将向土耳其提供4000万元人民币的紧急援助，包括派遣重型城市救援队、医疗队，并提供土耳其方面急需的救灾物资。我们正在协调向叙利亚提供叙方急需的救灾物资，并加快落实正在实施的粮食援助项目。
Xi Jinping's government also promised to continue providing assistance to Turkey and Syria according to their needs. Sources say Turkish and Syrian rescuers braved freezing darkness, aftershocks, and collapsing buildings as they dug for survivors. New reports claim the combined death toll in the two countries now exceeds 5,000, with nearly 6,000 buildings collapsed. Randy Bernardino from Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
2 of the 4 suspects believed to be behind a chain of robberies and fraud cases across Japan were deported from the Philippines. Sources say the remaining suspects could be deported as early as Wednesday, the same day President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is due to depart on a state visit to Japan. Vin Pascua tells us more.
Authorities deported 2 of the 4 suspects believed to be behind a series of robberies and phone fraud cases in Japan at the Manila airport. Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla said Japanese police would accompany Kyoto Imamura and Toshiya Fujita back to Tokyo. Remulla previously said Imamura, Fujita, and 2 other suspects were held in an immigration detention facility. He said they were caught with cell phones that may have been used to run criminal enterprises.
Today, February 7, 2023, we are set to deport 2 Japanese nationals. The 2 form part of the first batch of total of 4 Japanese nationals who have been identified by the Japanese police to be the leaders of a criminal organization in their home country. They have been charged with robbery, fraud, and theft in Japan. They are considered fugitives from justice.
There are actually a total of 18 Japanese nationals inside our warden facility, but 4 are being considered as key suspects in the Luffy case. So out of the 4 key suspects in the Luffy case, this is the first 2 deportation. We are still awaiting for the clearance from the courts for the other 2.
Japanese state media says the criminals were given orders to carry out break-ins or fraud. Criminals told the police they've received instructions from a person or several people who use the name Luffy via the Telegram Messenger app. Monkey D. Luffy is the lead character of the hugely popular One Piece manga, a straw hat-wearing pirate hunting for a coveted treasure. Sources believe more than 70 people have been apprehended in relation to the cases. Initial investigation says the group was behind 2,300 cases of fraud worth 3.5 billion yen or $26.4 million. It has also been connected to a series of break-ins in Tokyo. The group was also involved with the murder of 90-year-old Kinuyo Oshio, who was found dead at her home on January 19. As Japan and the Philippines do not have an extradition treaty, local cases already filed against the suspects had to be cleared before they could leave.
Ahead of our President's visit to Japan, we at the Department, together with the Bureau of Immigration and the National Bureau of Investigation, hope that this will not only strengthen the ties between the Philippines and Japanese government, we hope that this shows the sincerity and genuine effort to curb any illicit or illegal maneuvers meant to erode the credibility of our justice system.
I am Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippine Statistics Authority reports the country's January inflation rate ballooned to 8.7%, driven by increased prices in housing and other commodities. Madeline Villar Moratilio with this report.
The country's inflation rate rose in January this year, according to a report released by the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA. National Statistician Undersecretary Dennis Mapa said the January 2023 inflation rate in the country hit 8.7%. Up by 0.6% compared to December 2022 inflation rate of 8.1%. According to MAPA, the country's inflation rate has been accelerated mainly by the increase in housing prices related to house rent, which reached 5% inflation, water payments 6.1%, electricity payments 22.2%, and fuel prices 30.5% in diesel and 9.6% in gasoline. MAPA also said the country's inflation rate was ballooned due to high prices of food and other non-alcoholic beverages at 10.7%, restaurants and accommodation services at 7.6%, and transportation at 11.2%.
Ang pinakamalalaking weight or item na may pinakamataas na weight dito sa housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels ay yung rental, housing rental. At ito ay tumaas noong January na, as I reported, nasa 5.4%. Well, because of the opening up of the economy, January, I think nag-adjust yung mga rents. I was looking at the annual inflation ng housing rental in the past 3 years, during the lockdown. 2020, it was 2.5%. This is annual. 2021, it went down to 1.3%. And 2022, 2.4%.
The inflation rate recorded in January 2023 is higher than the 3% in January 2022 due to the opening of many businesses, which has increased demands, especially food and services. The PSA is monitoring the movement in food prices as it is expected to accelerate or slow the country's inflation rate in the coming months. Madeline Villar Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Although the new subvariants of COVID-19 are mild, under certain circumstances, they remain deadly. According to Octa Research Fellow Dr. Guido David, based on the Department of Health, there were 11 patients who died of COVID-19 from January 23 to February 5 this year. While from September 2022 to January 22, 2023, 85 people died from the coronavirus disease. At the time, the XBB 1.5 subvariant is the most common strain of the virus. The expert called to ensure safety by always disinfecting and wearing face masks, especially in crowded areas. Although as of January 31, 2023 data, 73.8 million Filipinos have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, David advised the public not to be complacent with the number of vaccinated people.
Large areas of the country are affected by easterlies, but so far no bad weather is formed inside or outside the Philippine area of responsibility for the coming days. According to Pagasa, the easterlies, or the winds coming from the east and passing through the Pacific Ocean, bring the country a warm climate. Cloudy showers with light rainfall are expected in Batanes and Babuyan Islands due to the northeast monsoon or amihan. Coming up, the WHO says earthquake in Turkey and Syria could affect up to 23 million people. Pentagon claims the Chinese spy balloon is potentially rigged to explode. And North Korea vows to make expanded and intensified military drills. These stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. The World Health Organization warns 23 million people could be affected by the massive earthquake that has killed thousands in Turkey and Syria. WHO vows long-term assistance to both countries and considers both the unmet immediate and midterm needs of Syria. Described as a race against time, the UN Health Agency immediately sends aid to people in the area. The WHO chief also promised to work closely with all partners to support authorities in both countries to help them recover and rebuild.
Now is the time to really be able to prevent some of those further deaths. This, according to Dr. Catherine Smallwood, WHO Europe Senior Emergency Officer. Smallwood addresses the situation in Turkey and Syria following the deadly 7.8 magnitude quake.
Some people, unfortunately, won't be saved. But in terms of people taking specific actions, staying outside of areas of danger, and not finding themselves in situations where further aftershocks could affect them, there we can make a difference. And the Turkish health authorities are putting out really extensive messaging, asking people to come together at specific areas that are safe, that are considered safe.
Smallwood warns of the risks awaiting people days, even weeks after the devastation.
So people will be missing electricity, will not be able to heat their homes if they're able to go back to their homes. For other people who can't go back to their homes, they will be meeting and gathering in collective environments, and that will also pose particular risks if they're not well catered for, if there's no heating, but also due to overcrowding, there are additional risks of respiratory virus circulation. And we're in the winter time, there are specific respiratory viruses that are circulating, and these will benefit well if people are having to shelter in communal settings.
Turkey has rejected Elon Musk's offer to activate Starlink after a deadly earthquake hit the country. Starlink is SpaceX's satellite internet service. Musk also confirmed the news on his Twitter account. He said Starlink is not approved by the Turkish government yet. However, he insisted SpaceX can send it as soon as it gets approved. Sources say a senior Turkish official thanked Musk for the proposal, but said Turkey had enough satellite capacity.
The U.S. Navy has begun an operation to recover debris from the Chinese balloon shot down off the coast of South Carolina over the weekend. The debris is spread over an area of 11 square kilometers. Republican lawmakers accuse the Biden administration of dragging its feet. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell said it defies belief to suggest there was nowhere between Alaska and the Carolinas where the U.S. could have safely shot down the balloon. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner added this was an attempt by China to gather information to defeat U.S. command and control of sensitive missile defense and nuclear weapon sites. A Chinese Ministry of National Defense spokesperson said China reserved the right to take necessary measures in dealing with similar situations, describing the U.S. action as an overreaction.
Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning has admitted that the balloon spotted over Latin America on Friday is also from China. But Mao claims the balloon was intended for civilian use or flight tests. She explains the aircraft had deviated from its route, having been blown off course. She insists China is a responsible country and has always strictly abided by international law. Mao says they have communicated with relevant parties and are handling the issue appropriately. She also vows the balloon will not cause any threat to any country. Remember, a similar device was shot down by the United States over the weekend. U.S. Northern Command Chief General Glenn Van Hert claims the alleged Chinese surveillance balloon could have been carrying explosives to destroy itself and its cargo. Van Hert says the balloon was up to 200 feet tall and carried a payload of over a couple of thousand pounds. He also confirms that several balloons have flown over the U.S. before, backing up media reports. Sources say one balloon crashed off the coast of Hawaii 4 months ago, while another passed through Florida and Texas during the presidency of Donald Trump. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres warns nations that he fears the likelihood of further escalation in the Russia-Ukraine conflict means the world is heading towards a wider war. The Secretary General lays out his priorities for the year in a gloomy speech to the UN General Assembly that focused on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the climate crisis, and extreme poverty.
The Russian invasion of Ukraine is inflicting untold suffering on the Ukrainian people with profound global implications. The prospects for peace keep diminishing. The chances of further escalation and bloodshed keep growing. I fear the world is not sleepwalking into a wider war. I fear it's doing so with its eyes wide open.
Says 2023 started with countries staring down the barrel of a confluence of challenges unlike any in our lifetimes. The Secretary General implores countries to wake up and get to work. The first Leopard 2 main battle tank that Canada has donated to Ukraine arrived in Poland. In a social media post, Canadian Defense Minister Anita Anand confirmed the arrival that showed the tank rolling from a military cargo, adding that the armed forces of Ukraine will be trained to use the equipment. Last month, Canada vowed to send 4 Leopard 2 tanks to help Ukraine in its fight against Russian invaders, following announcements from Germany and the U.S. that they would provide battle tanks for frontline use. Berlin is now allowing countries that have Leopard 2 tanks to ship them to Ukraine, an about-face from its earlier position on transferring the German-built tanks to war zones. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu says Ukraine lost around 6,500 fighters, 33 aircrafts, and 341 tanks last month. He claims Russian troops also secured 7 DPR settlements, including the town of Solidar. He insists the U.S. and its allies are attempting to prolong the Ukrainian conflict as much as possible. Shoigu also vows Russia will continue to destroy all Western weaponry shipped to Ukraine.
North Korean state media quotes military officials as saying they will expand and intensify military drills to ensure their readiness for war. The pledge came Monday at a meeting overseen by leader Kim Jong-un. It follows last week's staging of joint air drills by South Korea and the U.S. Kim has said his country must beef up its military muscle this year in response to what Pyongyang calls U.S. and South Korean hostility. The meeting of the country's Central Military Commission comes as satellite imagery suggests intensive parade preparations are underway in Pyongyang ahead of key state holidays this month. North Korea celebrates the founding anniversary of its armed forces tomorrow. On February 16th, the country marks the birthday of Kim Jong-il, son of North Korea's founder and the father of the current leader. Up next, healthcare workers stage massive walkout in UK over low wages. Massive fire damages factory and warehouse in Illinois. And Brazil begins evicting illegal miners from indigenous land. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news. Please stay tuned.
Ng presyo ng bilihin, kamusta na ba kayo mga kaagapay?
Hindi siya masyadong mabili.
Malungkot. Wala ng pag-asa.
Mga kaagapay, huwag ka nang malungkot dyan. Dahil ikaw, ako, tayong lahat ay tuturuan ng ating mga kaagapay paano ba magkaroon ng sariling tanim na bawang at sibuyas. Ako po, si Robin Padilla, at ito po ang ulat, kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
When marimba rhythms start to play,
Susunod sa Counterpoint, walang prenong mga tanong.
How do you handle this bashing? Did it ever cross your mind that you might lose the election nung nakaraan?
Derechahang sagot.
I wanted to prove to the people that I could be a leader that could be trusted.
Kasama si Atty. Sal Panelo at Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte sa Counterpoint. Tuwing Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi dito sa Net 25.
Meron diyang pinapatawad na kita.
Well, hindi naman siya humihingi ng kapatawaran, sis.
Emre, para sa ating dalawa, para sa future natin.
Wala na tayong dalawa, tapos na ang lahat.
Tuloy na nga bang pigo si Aileen?
Natin pakinggan mo ko!
Pero di pa nakakabawi sina Emre at Sanem kay Chan. Oras na nga ba para sa katotohanan?
Hindi mo kilala ang kapatid ko. Ayaw na ayaw niya sa mga sinungaling. Maglalaho yun. Hindi natin siya makikita. Tiwala lang. Magiging okay siya.
Sasabihin ko sa kanya lahat. Kailangan niyang malaman.
Malaman ng ano, Sanem?
Sundan sa Daydreamer. Monday to Friday, 7:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together. Wala talo pag together. Let's stand together. Sa Net 25. Love and everything. Ang Pinoy na wais ay diskarte. Handang ibigay ang love and everything. Oh yeah! Basta para sa pamilya. Love and love. Love and everything. May solusyon ang problema. May pag-asa kaya yan. Love and everything. Ang mapagmahal ng Pinay. Tatakbo, lalamoy, lulundag, ilipad. At gagawin love and everything. Love. Harapin ang buhay with love and everything. Love and everything. Love. Harapin ang buhay with love and everything. Panalo tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
Ang Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos. Every Sunday, 9 p.m.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
A latest YouGov poll says over half of the UK population believes that leaving the EU was a mistake. The survey claims 1 in 6 who initially voted in favor of Brexit regrets UK's decision. 90% of Brexit voters have not changed their stance on the matter. 17,101 voters participated in YouGov's poll, which began on November 22nd last year and ended on January 15.
Nurses and ambulance staff in the United Kingdom have stepped up their efforts to press the government for better pay and improved working conditions. On Monday, they launched the biggest round of health service strikes to date. The job action saw both nurses and paramedics pick up picket signs and hit the bricks. This is the first time they have walked off the job on the same day. They say with inflation, they can't afford to live on their salaries. And nurses say many of their colleagues are leaving the profession because of those financial pressures. And that results in staff shortages. Their demands are not getting much sympathy from the government. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says pay raises have to be reasonable and affordable. He says big pay hikes will jeopardize efforts to tame inflation.
A city spokesman said fire crews battled a large fire at a suburban Chicago warehouse. In an aerial footage, the fire produced a pillar of heavy smoke that reached South Chicago suburb as firefighters drained water on flames. Initial investigation says the fire began about 6:30 in the morning. The warehouse has 230,000 square feet of domestic production, assembly, and workspace on 13 acres for a rapidly growing custom wood and metal manufacturer. Authorities add no people were injured.
Landslides in Peru have claimed more than 30 lives. Authorities say another 20 people are injured and 2 others are missing. Officials also warn the death toll could rise. The Peruvian army is taking water in sandbags to Arequipa region where the catastrophe struck. Mud and rock slides began on Sunday as a result of heavy rain. Hardest hit were 4 villages in the region. In hills near the villages, the slide swept away miners who were working there. About 12,000 people sustained damage to their homes. Local officials want the government to declare a state of emergency for the region.
Palestinian protesters responded to an Israeli raid in Jericho by blocking roads leading into the West Bank city. On Monday, Israeli forces killed 5 alleged Palestinian gunmen after a days-long search in a shooting near Jericho. The early morning raid comes amid a spike in Israeli-Palestinian violence. Protesters took to the streets in response, burning tires to block the main highway into the city. Shops and schools in the city were closed as part of a general strike and protest against the raid. Violence is rare in Jericho. It is a popular tourist destination for people who are drawn to the ancient city's religious and cultural sites.
Brazil is cracking down on illegal mining activity in the country. Hundreds of police and soldiers have been deployed to evict gold miners accused of causing a humanitarian crisis on indigenous land. The government says at least 15,000 people have illegally invaded the protected Yanomami Indigenous Reservation in the Amazon rainforest. Indigenous leaders accuse the miners of raping and killing people who live there. They also say mining activity has poisoned their water and triggered a food crisis by destroying the forest. Military police are patrolling access to the area. The operation also aims to stop the illegal transport of weapons and drug trafficking. Thousands of miners have already fled the area. A no-fly zone will be established in the area to stop planes from bringing in supplies for the mines.
Up next, GSIS hit a record 6.8 billion pesos in collection of non-life insurance premiums. 5 Argentine rugby players are sentenced to life for murder. And Net25's new show, Love and Everything, premieres on February 13. Catch this news and more when Matanong Agila International returns.
Love and everything. Ang Pinoy na wais ay diskarte. tayo pag together. Walang talo pag together. Let's stand together. Sa Net 25.
The GSIS proudly presented a record-breaking collection on its non-life insurance premiums last year, together with its enhanced marketing. Vin Pascua files this report. The government service insurance system collected 6.8 billion pesos in non-life insurance premiums in 2022. This is up by 15% from 5.9 billion pesos in 2021. The net worth of the GSIS also hit 41 billion pesos, making the government non-life insurer the largest in the country. GSIS President and General Manager Vic Veloso said his continued gathering and motivation among his managers prompted him to collect large amounts of non-life insurance. GSIS also boosted their marketing and made the public understand the importance of said insurance.
A court in Argentina sentences 5 amateur rugby players from the same team to life imprisonment. This for beating a young man to death in a crime with racist undertones. 3 more defendants are sentenced to 15 years in prison for taking part in the murder of Fernando Baez Sosa. Sosa was a young man from a Paraguayan immigrant family. The defendants and the family of victim Fernando Baez Sosa arrived at court in Dolores, Argentina for the sentencing. 18-year-old Sosa was murdered 3 years ago in a popular seaside resort. Net 25 is set to bring love to your homes with its newest talk show, Love and Everything, hosted by award-winning personality Love Anyover. Cés Alvarez tells us more.
Love Anyover is known for her wit, humor, energy, and ability to engage her audiences. She brings all this to Love and Everything, a show that is all about inspiring people and spreading positivity. This is Love's first radio TV show, and she is most thankful to the Net 25 management because she feels that this is one of the best gifts she has ever received, especially that she's celebrating her birthday this February. Love, who has been in the industry for 26 years and has hosted a variety of shows, also expresses her gratitude to all her friends and loved ones who never stop supporting her. She also acknowledges that her skills and talent were honed because of the support of the production team and her mentors, one of which is award-winning journalist Miss Cheche Lazaro. Love and Everything will feature a wide range of guests, from actors and musicians to content creators and entrepreneurs. With such a diverse lineup of guests, there is sure to be something for everyone on the show. It promises to offer a fresh perspective on what's happening around us and introduce us to many fascinating people. Meanwhile, Net 25 President Cesar R. Vallejos welcomes Love as part of the network's growing family. He also confessed that he is one of her fans. Love and Everything will premiere on February 13, 2023 at 11 a.m. So make sure to tune in on Net 25 and DZEC Radio Agila 1062 and you won't be disappointed. Cés Alvarez for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Heads Up blinks. Starting tomorrow, you can buy tickets for the shuttle bus service that is only available to ticket holders of the Blackpink Born Pink World Tour that will take place at the Philippine Arena in Bulacan. The ticket selling will begin at 12 noon, and the availability of round-trip tickets will be limited. Tickets are available at the SM Tickets branches and smtickets.com. Round-trip tickets from SM Mall of Asia to the Philippine Arena cost 600 pesos. And for those who will travel from Vertis North to the Philippine Arena, shuttle bus tickets are available for 450 pesos. For more details, such as the shuttle service schedule, visit Live Nation Philippines social media accounts. Blackpink's concert will be held in the Philippines on March 25 and 26 for their Born Pink World Tour, which will take place at the Philippine Arena.
A visually impaired artist exhibits Braille artwork in London. With his exhibition, The Power of Touch, open at the Qantas Gallery in London, artist Clark Reynolds wants to break down barriers with colorful Braille artwork that is accessible for everyone, the sighted, unsighted, and visually impaired. In a studio in Portsmouth, Clark explains that on one side, the future is bright because no one is doing what he's doing. But on the other side, the future is looking dark because he's going blind. He adds he's thinking of creative ways to produce his art. Clark was born with limited sight in his right eye, which he eventually lost completely. After he started losing his sight in his left eye too, Clark had to give up his job as a dental model maker. He was then inspired to become a full-time artist.
Obviously, when I learned Braille 3 years ago, it was like, how can I make it accessible for everyone? And I was like, well, Braille is not meant to be seen. And then I had the idea about giving it colour. And behind you, you know, they look something out of very pop arty, but the idea, the colours aren't random. So what I did, I looked at the commonality of letters appearing in words, then used colour theory. So they weren't just random colours, I think I plucked out the air. People.
Clark is passionate about promoting the benefits of Braille, currently used by 30,000 people in the United Kingdom. When he is not creating art, he is teaching Braille in schools. It's Tuesday, and to help you go through this week, here's a quote from Ausonius, a Roman poet. Let us never know what old age is. Let us know the happiness time brings, not count the years. Who's counting the years? Happy birthday! It's CJ's birthday! Happy birthday, CJ! Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Again!
Okay, so we will be sharing this.
Make a wish.
How do you... Yeah, let's just touch it.
Really, that's a talent. Happy birthday, CJ.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. You know, this has always been an honor for me to be doing the news every night. You know, we share bad news mostly every night, but I hope in perspective, we still see the good in every day.
And when you celebrate your birthday, it's a promise of another year of many blessings.
And you know, one thing that I promised myself, I don't want to end up being a spectator in my own life. So I promised myself I'm always going to be present in every day. Try to see what's wrong, try to see the good, and enjoy everything.
Seize every moment. Happy birthday.
I hope you do that too. And that is a wrap for tonight's news. Thank you so much for joining us every weeknight to catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Happy birthday!